The Faculty has become a classic in sci-fi horror over its interesting take of alien invasions, but also what 90s or 2000s films gave audiences of the time. From movies like Hackers, released in 1995, to more rom-com films like She's All That, released in 1999. The Faculty would use influences from successful films like Scream in 1996, which has some interesting lore that this alien movie can be tied into, but I will speak more on that later in this video. It would reference its main plot by giving the audience a statement about Invasion of the Body Snatchers and Independence Day. But it would also take cues from successful cult classics like The Thing, which has been hands down one of my faves, and as well as the 1980s version of The Blob. The reason why I'm making this video is because I am such a nerd for weird sci-fi alien movies. I always remember this one scene from the film Dreamcatcher that has some Stephen King lore, which is also free on YouTube at the moment, but there's one scene where a guy had ingested alien eggs, and you guessed it, it ends up being an interesting take with toilets and bowel movements. However, the plot for that film was not as interesting as what The Faculty presented, making this classic become an icon for horror and why it is now being seen as one of the best alien films. It captures a moment in time where every film of the 90s and 2000s was either about American football, being an outcast, or both in a high school setting. I mean, you can even see the Faculty's plot in stories like Christine, which made older audiences of the time really like what this alien invasion film presented. So what made The Faculty one of the best alien movies of all time? The first thing we need to take a look at is some of the plot, but also the cast involved. In the movie, it makes numerous references of being an outcast or not being taken seriously by adults in high school, which a lot of films of the time used. The 1990s had definitely been the teen story era, and so The Faculty would incorporate this, but I have to state that its storyline is a bit older and predates the success of teen horror like Scream. The Faculty gives you the jock, the nerd, the goth, the popular queen, the cool dropout, and the new kid on the block, all trying to figure out what is wrong with the faculty of a Ohio high school. This makes it relatable to all audiences, but it isn't just parts of this plot. The cast of this film really made you feel like you were a student in the school of this alien invasion, which brings in more suspense. The best example of this is when Casey and Delilah are looking for evidence of alien behavior in the faculty room, which had been an Easter egg earlier in the film. Now, this cast is full of successful movie stars. There's Elijah Wood as Casey, who became the superhero because of his wimpy stance in the film, who would also be in a very successful franchise known as Lord of the Rings. Then you have Jordana Brewster, known more for the successful Fast and Furious franchise, Jon Stewart, Salma Hayek, Usher, and the list goes on the talented cast. This move with the plot and cast would give way to the horror side of the film. The second part as to why The Faculty has become one of the best is because of aliens. Duh! I love aliens, the lore behind them, and there's so many interesting narratives you can play with. A good example of this is through more B-rated films like Night Skies. During the ending of this movie, we get to see aliens doing experiments on the abducted, but what The Faculty does that hadn't really been pushed in previous films was giving the audience thoughts that anything or anyone can be alien, but also using a slasher narrative. You can see this in later films like The Invasion, released in 2007, which took both Invasion of the Body Snatchers and The Faculty into a modern perspective. The Faculty gives you fear of the unknown. Can a parasitic organism really be the cause as to why everyone is acting weird, or is it because everyone's drinking a lot of water? Like, what are you, a car? Not very many alien movies use the idea of a sea-dwelling parasite taking over a school. There is so much science that went into the idea of the Faculty that it wasn't just a bluish-gray being with big eyes from another planet. We get scenes of Mr. Tate having some form of alcoholic abuse, but after the alien takes over his body, he drinks so much water and is clearly struggling with withdrawals through his anger because, as everyone knows, alcohol makes you dehydrated. I forgot to mention there is some form of narcotics or caffeine pills being the focal point of the plot, as it would be used to dry out the parasite, which is also why you see less of the Faculty drinking coffee as the film goes on. This whole vibe makes the audience want to know what is taking over this Ohio high school. The last stand with how The Faculty is one of the best is the lore behind behind the film. In the beginning of this video, I had stated that this movie was tied into the Scream franchise, but also that its conception is a bit older. The film had been introduced in the early 1990s, but had been passed multiple times, and it wasn't until the success of Scream in 1996 that would have the faculty looked over and rewritten. This would introduce Kevin Williamson, who had success with Scream, or I Know What You Did Last Summer, which also played a pivotal role into the success of teenage slasher horror in the 1990s. Z could be referenced to Dazed and Confused, as he was a walking contradiction of a dealer. The actor who played Bobby in Scary Movie could be seen in this film fighting with his girlfriend. That also made a reference to Billy and Sydney of Scream. It was just how well thought out the film presents itself that made it such a classic. It had Easter eggs and a story that left audiences theorizing about the alien. Or what about that one weird scene with Zeke and Miss Burke flirting? Gross, dude. The design of the alien and how it infects students was unique, as it presented itself more like human anatomy, which makes you wonder, are we so different? The Queen could transform and pass off as human, or become this 10-foot monster which terrorized audiences and made it so believable. There has been talks of a remake or sequel happening, and with the way nostalgia is going and how much of a cash grab they have become, spitting out the same story in modern times with TikTok and iPhones, I don't see how this film could have much of a spotlight. What makes The Faculty so successful and a classic in today's time is the relatability, but also its writing and effort that went into producing it. Older generations still love this film, my generation still loves this film, and newer generations have jumped into The Faculty world. And even though it has spotty CGI that could use a refresh, I still stand behind how each of the cast made this film so freaking believable. What do you think about The Faculty? Is it one of your faves like it is for me, or do you think this film is a copy and paste of more successful franchises?